This is Rukaya Sani, a young mother who gave birth in a terrible condition during the flood, sitting in a rickety section of an uncompleted building with no windows. She wondered where to go with her 2-year-old child and her newborn.
Hello and welcome to Business Daily on Trust Television, where we'll bring you all the information you need to know about the business world. This is the program where money matters matter. My name is Christiana Amodu Otinya. Thank you for always keeping a date with us on the program. Now, according to data from the Institute of Economic and Peace, violence affected 8% of Nigeria's gross domestic product, that's GDP, leading to the country's loss of about 50 trillion naira within 18 months, as businesses continue to count losses dealt on them by the state of security in the nation. Now, on today's edition of the program, our focal point will be on insecurity and how that has affected Nigeria's economy. Of course, for the nation's economy to grow, insecurity needs to be tackled. The Nigeria Security Analysis Report, which is part of the IEP 2021-2022 report, that's for the month of January to June 2022, followed the research by Next Year SPD. Next Year SPD has maintained a robust database of violent conflicts in Nigeria in recent years. The database tracks violent conflicts such as banditry, terrorism, extrajudicial killings, thermal incidents, armed robbery, cultism, piracy, secession, agitation, and communal clashes. I will be joined on the show today by experts, of course, looking through the prism from the economy and the security path to create a nexus between how insecurity situation is hammering businesses, especially how businesses are faring through the murky waters they have had to face in recent times. It promises to be an insightful one, and I trust you do not want to miss out on it. I'll hold my horses here, take a short break. When I come back, we'll delve into the conversation. Please stay.
TV, documenting the Nigerian story.
Welcome back and thank you for still staying there with us on the program. If you're just joining the program, this is Business Daily coming to you from Trust Television. Now it's time to kickstart the conversation of the day, talking about insecurity and how that is affecting Nigeria's economy. Of course, for an economy to thrive, it is important to ensure that the environment is safe. I remember when there was a lot of back and forth around the Petroleum Industry Bill before we now have the Petroleum Industry Act. That act is expected to foster a secure oil and gas environment. Now, let's bring it to the larger picture, talking about the larger economy. My guest is with me now. He is Jonathan Isaac. He is a security expert. Of course, he will be giving some perspective to the issue we have at hand. Welcome to the program.
Thank you. It's my pleasure. Thank you to my viewers.
So let's begin with how you view the environment currently. Just like I mentioned in my intro, 50 trillion naira is being lost to insecurity, according to a report by some private sector think tanks. Now, in recent times, how would you say we have fared so far in terms of the security situation of the nation?
Well, you see, security is an uncertainty. And when there is uncertainty in a country, one thing that, of course, is going to happen is loss of business. Yes. The environment is not perfect for any kind of business arrangement in this, at this point. Exception of ransoms that they are collecting around, which is not supposed to be a business for a sane country. From, an overview of the issue here is, when we talk about security,
yes,
we first talk about lives, right?
Yes.
We talk about properties. Properties can be business. Properties in this instance can be what you do to ensure that there's life. It is until there is business before life can thrive. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you mean? So when we talk about security, security cuts across all sectors of life. And then you can't do any kind of business in modern society without security. Now, one thing that security also, or insecurity as the case may be, has be able to, render Nigeria useless before the international community. There are no investors coming in. You just talk about the Petroleum Act, which is supposed to strive, but it's not coming up. Why is this so? Because there's no security. Even foreigners are not ready to invest in the country.
Yes.
And then with the recent, attacks of banditries, terrorism, kidnap, and hostage taking, some foreigners have said, no, Nigeria is not a safe place for any kind of business to go. So we must begin to look at what insecurity has created, or the image it has painted Nigeria before even foreigners or the international community. Can they be confident of coming to the country for any kind of business?
Yes.
The answer is no. Now we also look at the import and the export, the policy that is between these two arrangements. What has it, further created? It has created what they call in economics Cobra effect. In an attempt to even solve it, it has rather created more problems. So we begin to look at the policy and then how to address certain issues that will not at the end of the day create more problems instead of solving the problems.
Jonathan, I like that you've given us a background, and like you've clearly stated, for the economy to thrive, the environment needs to be secure, because you have alluded to foreign investors coming into the country and foreign investment coming into the country. Now, the Nigerian Investment Promotion Council, in the first quarter of 2022, talking about the first 3 months of the year, says about $8.1 billion. That's what shows as a country investment. Now, this is 69% lower than what we saw in the corresponding period. I want to ask you now, why do you think this has lingered for so long? For many, it would look like a cliche question, but to get results, we need to know why this is lingering and how this can be tackled.
Now, I just mentioned about policy. Everything that has to do with government, those must be with policy. Once a policy does not favor a particular region, example, let me take you back to the issue of the pyramids. Mm-hmm. Can we now say that we actually have anything called pyramids now? No, because in economics at the same time, sorry, I'm driving you back to economics now. It's when there is surplus in the market, what does it cause? It does not create inflation.
Yes.
Are you in me? It is when there's scarcity that is what inflation comes. Now, if you look at the situation on ground, the reason why we have so much of these problems is that our production level is not matching up with our consumption level. Mm-hmm. Until we begin to make up and to begin to have surplus in reserve, then we can now say, okay, our export policy will begin to favor both the domestic consumption and also whatever we are taking out of the country. So we begin to look at it. It will still fall back to to the production and the policy of government. For instance, when they closed the border because of what? Insecurity. Yeah. You have closed border because of what? There's a problem. Yes. But instead of closing the border, it is better you fortify the border. Because in closing the border in this instance, you are rather creating what we call economic rent. Economic rent in the sense that some persons in this region are only taking for their own stomach. You have created a problem that some persons in particular region, and now you increase what they call the revenue or whatever you pay to PAR. They call it PAR. What you now pay to custom duty, the PAR now have been increased to what? 100%. Where is it done? Where is it done? You are doing that to generate revenue. Yes. But instead, you have created opportunity for some others to begin to take advantage of the backyard. So because not everybody is going to pay PAR. If you are paying 10 million naira for an import, you've now created it to what? To 20 million. Yeah. So how can people begin to pay? Instead of that, they go through the wall, to the window and say, how much can you get? I can pay 5 million. They begin to cut corners. So we should look at policy of government, and then when this policy are not done and not implemented, we can see how to filter in certain things that is not favoring the masses.
Okay, Mr. Jonathan, just before we continue on the thoughts, we are talking about the issue of insecurity and how it's impacting businesses. Now we have this that we have put together in terms of how businesses are trying to accounting their losses basically from the spate of insecurity in the country. Please take a listen.
Across all sectors, businesses have been negatively impacted as inflation continues to bite harder. This negative effect has not spared artisans and by extension their families.
Of things now, it's not easy for us, like for me when they do this weather, because the price of the material is so high, and all my customers, they are not finding it very easy. So the economic now is very, very high for us.
Beyond low patronage, some customers have resorted to paying less for services rendered, while some service providers have been forced to offer their services for free in order to maintain relationship.
This time around, things are too choked. Like before then, when government was good. In fact, I have a lot of customers. But now, because of no payment of salaries, many people then drop their car because there's no money. So the thing is affecting my business so much. It's not like before. Like now, everybody that comes to my shop, my brother, I don't have money. So I can't understand because of the situation that is happening this time around.
The situation has forced some out of businesses, while those managing to stay say it has become difficult for them to negotiate for services with customers due to high cost of materials for the services.
Actually, those days people do barb less than even 300, but we do get customers regular. But due to the change in government and how things have become so high cost, customers do come complain, sometimes even the 300 they cannot pay, just because some of them will complain government is not paying or their business are not moving, or they have children that they are taking care of, so you have to manage. That's not the way it used to be. You do get little customers, maybe in a day you can get maybe 1.5. Some days are even better than that. You cannot even make up to 1,000 naira. But we are coping, managing. Even if someone bring 150, 200, sometimes we don't understand because of the regularity of the customer coming to the shop.
As the nation battles the current economic downturn, many in this category are hopeful that the necessary policies will be put in place to address the crisis.
Now they're listening to respondents talking about how the economic hardship is also biting their business. According to one of the respondents, Mr. Ushahemba, he said things are too choke. And that's Nigeria parlance for saying things are really difficult. Things are not going so well for businesses. And as much as we want these businesses to take responsibility, there's also the fact that these businesses cannot be local governments unto themselves. They cannot keep securing their businesses. They cannot keep repairing the roads that lead to their shops or that lead to the market places. I want you are about to give me an example you also have of a business that you're aware of that is also feeling the pangs of this issue we're talking about.
Okay, now look at it from this angle. We talk about policy, and everything about government is about policy. Mm-hmm. When a policy does not favor the people, you see them crying. When it favors, you see how it's... Now, for instance, I was going to give you an instance of the young man, a barber like that, who is around my neighborhood. And then he was using the normal past my neighbor generator to make this, to do this business, even though the fuel was much and all of that. Now, the generator he was using had faults that he could not even continue refacing and all of that. They say coiling and all of that. So he said, better we get a new one. Now, to assist in these regards, I look at it. I want to price it, just the generator we are buying 15,000 naira, 12,000, 20,000 at most. Now, almost skyrocketed to about 45,000 naira. Then I begin to ask, I begin to wonder, what has changed? What has changed is just the importation what costs. And who are the last consumer? We are the one. So everything they bring, at the end of the day, we are the one to pay for the revenue. And it is because the government policy is not favoring. And why is it so? Because they have closed border. And because they have closed the border, they are going to do what we call smuggling. And for you to get it into the country, that's what has equally affected the rice price in the market today. Because they say, no, we have closed the border. We don't want any importation of what rice and all of that. Still, there's still rice in the market. When your local consumption, when your production is not equal to your consumption, and you have closed the border, that's why I say you've created a problem. And that problem, it is for the world, the poor masses to face it. Because a poor man who cannot get 55,000 to get a bag of rice, 30,000 to get a bag of rice, we begin to look for what? And even the local one also is not surplus enough so that it will not create inflation. If the local one is surplus in the market, there won't be inflation. So we look at the both sides of it. It is because government policy is not favoring the people. And when we talk about government policy, we are not equally we need to talk about the security of government, because that is where the whole thing comes from. And that's why I talk about the border fortification. If you fortify your border, you don't need to close the border. If the person in the border is not compromising to take 50,000 or 100,000 naira to allow certain things to come in, you wouldn't have been saying you want to close the border. Now, when we close the border, from the period we close the border, have we been able to significantly defeat banditry, terrorism in the country? The answer is no. So the answer is not just tied to border closing alone. It is about those that we were going to man the border. The personnel that is going to man the border. So that when you look around, you look at the situation around, and that's why people have advocated that the issues of our security men at the border needs to be looked at. That they should not just have about Nigerian police, Nigerian customs. No, we should not begin to have a partnership of other customs officers from other neighboring African countries coming to Nigeria to station their border and see that there's synergy. You cannot compromise, because the things going out of the country and things coming into the country, we have to be well policed.
Jonathan, I hear all you have said, and I hear you speak so much about policy, because like you have rightly said, the leaders are put in place to enact the right policies, and not just the right policies, favorable policies that would make better the lives of its citizenry. When you talk about policies, let's look policies, I beg your pardon. Let's look at the security architecture of Nigeria. And you also stated that when the borders were closed, security was one of the leading proponents on why they closed the border. And we're still having security challenges lingering till now. Look at the security apparatus, the security architecture of Nigeria. Is that enough to help tackle this challenge? Because if insecurity is ticked out of that box, we know that a good level of the challenge has been addressed. Now let's look at the security architecture. How can we probably rejig that, or what needs to be done to the security architecture to help address this menace?
Okay. Insecurity is a problem, and then security is the solution. Now we begin to look at the solution of what we are not doing, what we are not doing right. What is the solution? Number one, when we talk about insecurity, we talk about unemployment. When we talk about insecurity, we should be talking about uncertainty. When we talk about insecurity, we should be talking about injustice. When we talk about insecurity, we should be talking about unfair share of our resources. When we talk about insecurity, we should be talking about lack or access to education. When we talk about insecurity, we should be talking about lack of good leaders or governance. When we talk about insecurity, we are talking about the lack of understanding, tribalism, ethnicity, religious bigots and all of that. When we talk about insecurity, we are talking about government failures or government irresponsibility to the masses. Why did I put it irresponsibility? We said the primary responsibilities of government is to secure lives and properties. So when they have failed, it is irresponsibility. So we should be talking about irresponsibilities of government to those issues. So when we talk about insecurity as a thing, it is when government is not meeting up to its expectation or to our expectation to the masses. When the people, perceive upward cheat from government, they becomes somehow it becomes too angry, and then they begin to look at where to react. Now, what we are talking about insecurity today is the reaction of government, of the masses versus the government. When we talk about insecurity, it's just like the tip of the iceberg on what happened during the NSACs on the 18th October 2020. It's just like that kind of reaction. That is what leads to insecurity. When people begin to say that our people we're not taken care of. When we talk about insecurity, it's the unfair exploitation of the people without compensation. Like what will happen in the Niger Delta when you see militancy coming up, it is because of what? They are not compensating the people for
Jonathan,
all of this.
I want you to speak pro-solutions.
The solutions is what I have just said. Some of the pro-solutions are what I'm just trying to mention. So government begin to look at themselves from this perspective, because each time I come here, we'll talk about, this is what happened, the insecurity, we'll begin to talk about from the security perspective. But I'm looking at it now, holistically. I don't want to speak like a security man anymore. I need to speak like the mind of the people. I need to understand. I have been to the nooks and crannies of the society, and I have to look at what are the problems. It's not just by what I have studied. It's not about just what I have read. It's not what I have gone through. I'm trying to look at the next man to understand that what is he going through. So that I can begin to understand, purely, not just professionally, I'm a security consultant, I'm a security expert. No, we must begin to understand the feelings of the people and speak to the issues. Otherwise, you still come here tomorrow to say, there's a problem. So let's look at the problems and address the problems. Then we'll begin to reduce insecurity. Like I said, insecurity is a problem. Security is a solution. Now, finally, let me make a statement. Our conventional security architecture is failing. And we must look at the possibility of addressing it. Why is the National Security Advisor not coordinating?
Okay, let me just hold you on that thought. I will hold you on that thought, and we'll take a short break. When we return, the program will continue. Please stay.
That's great.
Welcome back, and thank you for still staying there with us. If you're just joining the program, this is Business Daily on Trust Television, and we have been speaking on how insecurity is impacting businesses. And my guest in the studio with me, Jonathan Isaac, he is a security consultant, but now he's wearing so many caps. He's been an economist, a security consultant, a political analyst. He's doing everything right here for me on the program. Now, I want you to land on your thought on when you were talking about the security architecture, because before I take you up on the next issue.
Okay, the issue is our conventional security architecture is not enough to mitigate the challenges. Now, the National Security Advisor at the same time is not coordinating to his expectation, because if you look at it, the center is not holding anymore, and we must begin to look at a possibility of how to, bring a synergy between our conventional security architecture. Because you look at it, this one is operating from the left, this one is operating from the right. So I don't understand the national interest in the whole fight against terrorism and banditry. So if we are coordinating from the center, there should be a force. There should be. I don't see a force. I don't even the what the so-called national joint task force. It's not coordinating so much to its logical expectation. So when we begin to look at the loose end, the National Security Advisor needs to come up with a template. And if this template is failing, then it is high time we begin to have what we now call a well-integrated community policing. Even though I know that some state governors have been agitating for state policing, at this point we should look at a possibility of community policing. And I've always advocated, not because of anything, but I have seen the youth that are involved in some of these NGOs, in some of these non-governmental organizations, and then the paramilitary, all of that. Okay. They can begin to engage them. For example, I mentioned the other day, the Nigerian Peace Corps is an opportunity of the government to take advantage and engage those youth. Okay. Even the NESO is also another opportunity for government to engage us. And then, for you to tackle insecurity, you must go to where the natives are concentrated. They know the nooks and crannies. If you go to Mali today and you are pursuing a criminal, it is the same people that are still going to tell you, the law enforcement person, don't worry, we are coming. And they'll go in there and fetch the criminal out. My friend, go and face your judge.
Jonathan, and we don't have so much time again. Now, I hear you talk about unemployment because a lot of experts have opined that there is a direct correlation between unemployment, poverty, and insecurity. However, there are also divergent views that it might be a situation of the value system we hold as a people. The next point of call for you, if you probably don't have something to do, should not be crime. I don't know if you understand where I'm coming from. Now, do you think in 30 seconds on one or 45 seconds thereabout, do you think there's a problem with the value system we have and probably we have to do some sort of reorientation for young people or those who engage in criminal activities and make our country insecure?
Yes, I think we have a problem with the value system more. And then look at it from this perspective. A banker who has been in the bank for years and then has all the information of who owns these billions in their account. Yes. All of a sudden, when it is time for you to confirm him or her as a staff, you say you can go. Yeah. He's not going like he's a happy man. He's not going to celebrate. He's not going to say, God, I thank you. No, he's going disgruntled. And of course, that is a cause of what we call the internet and the cyber insecurity we are seeing today, the cyber threat. Yes. So we have a value system problem, and at the same time, the unemployment, and also which leads to poverty. Okay, we need to wrap up now. Jonathan Isaac, thank you so much for coming on the program. Thank you to our viewers for your time. Now, it is very pertinent to say that this is a time where we want the foreign investment appetite to come into the country. As we move to strengthen the Naira, we want to ensure that we strengthen the local economy here back home. So we need investments to come into the country. And for that to happen, the nation has to be secure. Thank you for investing your time with me on the program today. My name is Christiana Amodu Otinya. Enjoy the rest of your day and continue to stay safe. Bye for now.